Hello everyone, in this video I'll be giving you a rogue build guide for in Diablo 4. Now the rogue is probably one of the best classes in the game other than the barbarian, and with the bow we can actually do great amounts of damage. So for our specialization, once you get to this, we're going to take the combo points. Basic skills now generate combo points, core skills consume combo points for additional effects, so you can get some really nice effects out of that. So for our basic skill, we're going to go with Forceful Arrow. Fire an arrow at an enemy, dealing damage. Every third cast makes enemies vulnerable for 5 seconds, meaning we're going to deal 20% more damage, so that's really nice to set up vulnerabilities. Every third cast of Forceful Arrow has a 15% increased critical strike chance, and every third cast of Forceful Arrow pierces through all enemies hit. So that is really nice just to be able to get some vulnerability set up. And for a basic skill, what more can you ask for this build? It's long range too, so you can hit enemies from afar. Now, the bread and butter of our build is actually rapid fire. So rapidly fire 5 arrows, dealing 594 damage, and combo points increase the damage any arrows fired. So that's why we want the combo points, because we're going to be able to spam this and deal crazy amounts of damage. And we're going to pair some two things that make this very effective. So modifiers: every subsequent arrow has a 5% increased critical hit strike and up to 40%. And you gain 15 energy per cast of rapid fire when it damages a vulnerable enemy. So we're going to regain our energy rather quickly here by hitting vulnerable enemies that we set up with Forceful Arrow. So we can pretty much keep our our energy fully topped off with this build. It's actually kind of crazy. So, and I'm going to take it, enhanced Forceful Arrow and primary Forceful Arrow to give that long range. Then the increased critical strike and the vulnerability from, or getting energy back from hitting vulnerable targets is incredibly useful. So we definitely want to be taking that. As we go down the line, we're going to be taking the dash. Now, this is actually really effective because we can dash forwards and it strikes enemies, but we're going to be kind of kiting them around. So dash is actually going to keep us alive. So we're going to take this, which will increase damage by dash. Enemies damaged by dash take 50% increased critical strike damage from you for 5 seconds. So if you dash through them, you're going to deal a little more damage. And then dealing damage to a crowd control enemies with dash reduces charge cooldown by up to 4 seconds per cast. So we actually do have some good crowd control here. And there's 2 different options we can go with. So as far as our skills go, you can take Poison Trap. I use this for most of the game. I'll come back to this later, but I'm taking Shadow Imbuement, which is actually extremely powerful. So imbue your weapons with Festering Shadows. Your next 2 imbuable skills deal shadow damage and infect enemies for 6 seconds. Infected enemies explode on death, dealing 489 damage to all surrounding enemies. So you can actually set up this in a large area of enemies, and then they're all going to explode and take out more enemies. So it's actually pretty broken, and has a cooldown of 13 seconds, so you want to be using this as much as possible. You have 15% increased critical strike chance against injured enemies infected by Shadow Imbuement, and the primary explosion makes enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. So that explosion attack can hit a large area of effect, and then coming back to our rapid fire, we can actually get the energy from that as well. So that gets quite powerful. Now, instead of Poison Trap, I also sometimes take Cold Imbuement. So you can go with the 2 Imbuments if you like these. I like to bounce between them. This will crowd control, and Cold Imbued skills have a 40% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. So again, more vulnerability, that's great. Lucky Hit, Cold Imbued skills have the 35% chance to instantly freeze enemies for 3 seconds. So that actually can be pretty powerful as well. So stacking all this together. And then also I like to take the Frigid Finesse, gives 50% increased damage to chilled enemies. This bonus increases to 30 against frozen enemies, so just more damage against cold. And chilled enemies have their movement speed further decreased. Now, if you don't want to go with this, 2 Imbuments, I would recommend taking Poison Trap and setting traps if you're getting chased by enemies, because this can stop them and deals 4,317 poison damage over 9 seconds. So yeah, this can be very effective for staying alive if you don't like going full damage with the Cold Imbuement. You can also imbue your dash attack, so that's pretty great as well. Now for our ultimate, Shadow Clone. It's very effective. So mimics your attacks for 15 seconds, deals 80% of your damage, and you're unstoppable for 5 seconds after casting Shadow Clone. So upwards of 80 of your damage is great. And then Intervention, up to 10% chance to gain 8 energy. So the more energy we get, the better. Every 100 energy we spend grants you 5% increased lucky hit chance for 5 seconds, which is great. But I do think that Shadow Clone, especially if you get the aspects that will apply your imbuments to your shadow as well, this thing can get pretty crazy. So for our final close quarters combat's what I'm taking. So damage to enemy with marksman or cutthroat skills gains. Each gains a 15% in crack speed bonus for 8 seconds. While both attack speed bonuses are active, you deal increased damage equal to 10% of your damage versus crowd controlled bonus. So very effective passive. There are some other ones here, but I think that this one works best for the build that we got here. So yeah, that is really nice. Now as far as gear goes, lucky hit I got here. Your marksman skills have a 10% chance to create an arrow storm at the enemy's target location, dealing 259 physical damage over 3 seconds. Shadow imbued skills have a 75% chance to release an explosion that deals 298 cold damage, chilling them for 25 per second. If they're already chilled or frozen, increases damage by 100%. So you can see here how this all kind of comes together. And then I just got another weapon here. Big skills gain 29% attack speed. That's a great aspect because it's going to allow you just to attack a lot faster with your basic skill. And deal increased damage for each second you stand still, upwards of 40%. So you can stand in place and deal a great amount of damage. So I think that's one of the best ways to go about building your character. But again, the gear is highly dependent on what you're able to find, and you can grind out gear later on in the game. But I'm going to show you in a nutshell what this is going to look like. So you want to use your Shadow Imbuement here. As you can see, it explodes enemies extremely quickly. So we had some arrow storms popping down there. It's actually crazy how fast you can deal damage with the Shadow Imbuement. So it regenerates after 13 seconds, which is incredibly quick. So you can deal a lot of damage really fast with this. It's very effective of a build because the Shadow Imbuement can deal area of effect damage. So we're going to do that again. And you see there it exploded and took out the enemies there. So if you don't kill them right away with the Shadow Imbuement, they will explode over time. So don't worry about it if you can't eliminate them. It's kind of best to, if you can, get multiple enemies with the Shadow Imbuement, because that's just going to mean that you have more explosions to apply vulnerabilities. But the cold damage, you can see there, it completely freezes them. And then I pulled in my Shadow Mimic there, and they help out a lot. So just being able to increase your damage by like 80% is really nice. But using the dash to get around can be very effective as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about building this class, but you see the shadow damage there. It's an area of effect killer. Because this build mostly targets single fire enemies. Like you can attack one enemy and deal a lot of damage with rapid fire. But once you get the Shadow Imbuement on, they get shredded by this. So see, they all got a vulnerability applied to them. Really quick and easy how you can make that happen. So I try to, whenever you're using the Shadow Imbuement, aim for anyone that's in the middle, because if you hit someone that's in the middle of the targets, you're going to deal an increased amount of damage to them. So this can get pretty effective really quickly. So yeah, that is my build guide for the Thief Rogue. Pretty much a ranger in Diablo 4. So if you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below and let me know in the comments what your favorite build is for Diablo 4. Thank you so much for watching.